Hello, and thanks for joining us for an interview with Mary Conkright. Mary is a nurse practitioner with CHoR's pediatric endocrinology team and the Healthy Lifestyle Center, and she is here with us today to discuss the importance of routines for kids and families. Thanks for joining us, Mary.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so routines are a lot different these days, obviously, with either virtual school or back in school looking a little bit different. Everyone's on a different schedule due to the global pandemic. But why is it important that kids and families need routines and structure just in general before COVID-19?
Yeah, definitely. So routines are kind of the core framework that help really give order to disorder or chaos. And so for kids in particular, routines and structures give them a sense of security and safety that really allows them to then learn the new skills that they need in life to grow and develop appropriately and to really thrive. So I think of it like a bungee cord. Like if you're going to go bungee jumping, before you jump, you're going to test the cord to make sure that that cord really holds. And so similarly, kids are going to test that cord. They're going to push against a boundary to know that that boundary exists and that they can stay safe within that. And so then that really allows them to do their job, which is learning all of these new developmental skills and tackling new challenges, which they do at an astonishing pace, right? They go from sitting to crawling to walking, reading and riding a bike. And all of these things are much easier for them within the context of routines that are regular and predictable and consistent.
Yeah, I really like that analogy. That makes a lot of sense in my brain, and I'm sure it does for other people too.
Yeah.
So why is it important to stick to routines in everyday life and even when life is a lot out of the ordinary like it is today?
Yeah. So that predictability from routines really is so important for kids. It, like I said, it increases their sense of security. And so I think especially during this time, during COVID, when there is so much uncertainty, that it's even more important that kids know that, as parents, you're still in control because they do sense your stress, no matter how much you might try to hide it. And then it's also important because sticking to routines really allows kids to strengthen their sense of mastery and competence and new skills. And so, even with COVID going on, they're still mastering new skills and learning new skills. And so it's important to help maintain those routines.
Yeah. So for littler ones that might be new to routines and still learning all of this fun new things and getting new structure in their life, what's the best way for the whole family to benefit for parents to introduce those routines?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And that's something that we talk about a lot with families is that that family-wide change. How do you do that? And how do you introduce new routines? So role modeling as parents is going to be the best tool that you have, no matter what you think you are, your kids, your kids will look up to you more than anyone. And so they're going to want to role model what you do. And then I think, using in a developmentally appropriate way, talking through new routines with your kids. So maybe you want to introduce the task that your child is now responsible for setting the dinner table at night. And so maybe talking them through the timeline of that and helping them know what to expect can really help introduce new routines.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Kind of like giving them a little bit of leeway and warning before the next thing happens, not to just jar them into it.
Yeah, so kids are expected to be learning so much, so many new challenges on a daily basis. And so like all of us, we can handle change better when we really know what to expect.
Yeah. So there are so many obvious benefits of routines, like structure, getting to bed on time, waking up on time.
Yeah.
What are some like unseen benefits or benefits that you think really come from routines?
So that predictable foundation is important for both the parent and the child, right? So life can be very stressful and busy. So I think just at the foundation of it all, routines kind of reduce the stresses of the day. They make life a little bit easier, kind of like a good friend. So they should be something that's helping you get through your days without some of these power struggles that can sometimes develop with kids and parents. So if your kids know that the expectation is at 7 o'clock, we get in the shower and brush our teeth, then there won't be a power struggle over over that because they know that this is just what we do at this time of day. I think it's also maybe a little bit of a unseen benefit is that routines really help kids manage their emotions and behaviors. And so it kind of teaches them how to regulate themselves as well within the world.
Yeah, that's something that I totally would not think of. Um, is there a thing that is like too much for kids, too many routines, too much structure?
Yeah, yeah. So there's only too much or too much structure, too many routines if it's too rigid. And so kids really thrive when there's choice within the boundaries that are set. And so of course there's going to be times where there's flexibility of routines where they need to be adapted or stretched a little bit. Maybe one night a week you allow the kids to leave the dishes in the sink because it's family game night. And so we want to get that game in before bedtime. And so routines that are too rigid are going to feel oppressive. And so finding some flexibility within those.
Yeah, I really like that option. It's good to have a little bit of lax time in your schedule.
Yeah.
And not be so in control of everything. So, how do routines look different these days for families, for parents, for kids, for everyone?
Yeah, so our routines have been so disrupted. I think that's one thing that we are hearing from families more than anything is how do we adapt to this new normal? And I think a big piece of that is that we don't have the experts in our life right now, right? Like the experts of teachers and in the school systems that have set up a lot of these routines for our kids. And so as parents, you're having to put them in place. They're having to put them in place themselves, managing schedules around school and homework and providing all meals at home. What does that look like? So it's kind of uncharted territory for our parents, and just remembering that I think during uncertain times, routines are even more important to remind your kids again that you're in control and that there's safety and security during this time.
Yeah, that even in the unpredictability, there can be some predictability in your day-to-day life.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I know we're kind of heading into fall break, Thanksgiving, holiday season. As a kid, I remember having a really hard time transitioning between school and break and spending a lot of time with friends and family during the holidays. It's obviously going to look different this year, but what is a good way to get back on track after a time where routines might get a little bit disrupted?
Yeah. So this is also something we talk a lot with our patients and families about. My favorite phrase that we use is not letting a slip become a slide. So when you feel your footing start to slip, how can you kind of immediately get back on track, get back to some of the basics that set you up for success as a family, versus letting that little slip become a full slide. And so oftentimes that really just means, again, getting back to some of those core fundamental routines that really help your family, whether it's sticking to set meal times or a lot of what we talk about is healthy behavior changes with our families, like avoiding sugary drinks and providing a vegetable at each meal, things that really can help get back on track quickly, and avoid that slide.
Yeah. And you kind of just touched on this a little bit with the not letting a slip become a slide analogy, but is it okay to take a break from routines when that's needed? I know kids obviously really thrive off that structure, as we've talked about, but
Right.
is that break okay?
Of course, yes. So it is important to have flexibility, and again, to give choices within the boundaries that you set for your kid. And so a lot of times that might just look like an adaptation to a routine. And truly, if a routine is not able to be kept at all, then maybe that routine is too rigid. So how can you think about adapting your routine over the breaks and over the holidays? And so that maybe looks a little bit different. So maybe that time where you typically set aside for family meals is going to look a little bit different, but you can certainly have some flexibility within those routines, and that's important, definitely.
Okay. And then my last question is that we've talked a lot about routines and structure playing an important developmental role in kids and toddlers, younger children, but what about routines for teens?
Yeah.
How important is that? How can parents encourage teens to stick to their routine and just stay on track?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as we talked about, the whole point of routines is that they allow kids to really learn and develop these new skills. And so adolescence, the teen years, is a time when teens push away from their parents and they're starting to really develop their own autonomy. And so a lot of times they've learned to master some of these skills. Does that mean that they don't need any encouragement or oversight? Of course not. They still need to learn how to continue these routines, but with less support from their parents. So as a parent, you may move from more of a monitoring role into more of a check-in role. And so you don't have to keep quite as close of an eye on your teens, but you do still check in and kind of ensure that the routines in place are setting them up to thrive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the idea of checking in, because I don't know, I remember being a teen and just wanting to have a completely different schedule than my parents.
Yes.
Completely different life and grow up quick, but everyone needs structure.
Yeah. And I mean, too, just going back to that point of giving choices, teens especially thrive with choices within routines and within boundaries. And so keeping that in mind with your teen is important as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining today. I know that if anyone has any questions, they'll leave them in the comments below and we will answer them and get back to you within the week. But thank you so much again, Mary.
Thank you. This has been great.